Hey everyone, I'm Spencer.
I'm Lara, and we're married with board games. One of the many great things about board games is that they are somewhat of an escape from the real world for a few minutes.
Well, for example, we're recording this review when it's really cold outside, but when you play Topiary, you get to escape the cold and enjoy a nice visit to a warm Topiary garden.
But visiting a Topiary garden isn't all that easy, as we found in this 2 to 4 player abstract game from Renegade Games. It's really difficult to be able to view all the beautiful sculptures, especially when your opponent is messing with you.
Oh, you wouldn't be talking about me, would you? Let's head over to the table for a quick how to play, then we'll tell you what we think. Alright, component-wise, this is Topiary. I've set up here for a 2-player game, blue player and green player. I just have these meeples out here just to show you that they're also in the game. But you've got a 5x5 grid of these tiles with these Topiary sculptures on them. They have like these whatever that is, a pyramid structure. Right there in the middle you can see it's a little elephant. But each player, when you set it up, gets their own set of custom meeples. You get 3 tiles, and then you've got the score marker that you're going to be using for this particular scoreboard, where you'll keep track of your score at the end of the game. When you set up the game, you can either deal out these tiles randomly, or you can do a draft variant, which you can basically have an option to choose from whenever you do get those starting tiles. But the game initially suggests you just deal out the tiles randomly. What you're trying to do in Topiary is get your little visitors to see the most sculptures, the most Topiary sculptures as they can. But they can only see these sculptures if they're not blocked by a taller sculpture. When you place down a meeple, you're going to be placing it around the outside edge of the board, and you can do it in one of 3 places on each tile. You can do it right here in the center, or you can do it on the diagonal going that way, or this diagonal going that way. And you can do that for any of them. So again, starting here, you'd go that way. If you're putting it here, you'd go that way. Or if you put it here on this diagonal, you'd look that way. Again, you're doing this so that they can look down these different aisles of this Topiary garden. On your turn, here's what you're going to do. You put down a visitor, and then optionally, you can rearrange the garden, essentially is what you're doing. And what you'll do is you'll choose one of the tiles that your visitor can see. So let's say I'm going to choose this one. Okay, this is a 1 swan. And I can, if I want to, swap it out with one of the tiles in my hand. So here's what's in my hand, and here's the one that I flipped over. I can swap it out if I want to. I think I'm going to keep the 1 swan right here. Because now, on later turns, if I were to go here, or on a diagonal, I can again swap this one out. What I'm trying to do essentially is be able to see, so let's say that this one was here, and then this one was here, and I'm just doing this for an example. What is this? This is a 4. So my meeple is looking down the line right here, and they're going to be able to see every one that is not blocked by a previous one. In this case, you're looking at the height, and the height is represented by the number. So here, if I'm going in increasing value, I can see everything as long as it's not higher than the previous one. So I can see this swan because it's a 1, and this little elephant is not blocked by the little swan, so I can see this one. And then this big elephant is a 4. It's not blocked by either of these. However, this whale right here, it's a 4, is blocked by the previous one because they're the same height. You can't see one behind one of the same height or a higher one. But yeah, that's all you're doing on your turn. So the next player will go, they'll put theirs, let's say that this person wanted to go here on this diagonal. Now they're looking down this way. So, as long as it's face down, you don't count the tiles. But right now, this player can see this 2 and this 4. And that's going to contribute to your score at the end of the game. This player now has the option to flip one over. Let's say they flip this one over. Oh, it's a 3. So, because that's 3, they can't see this 2, but they could see this 4. Let's say they want to swap that 3 out with this 1. Now, they can see this one, and this one. But that's what you do on your turn. You place a visitor, and then you can swap out a tile with one in your hand if you want to. You'll go around and around and around, and the game is over when the final visitor is placed. You can make things difficult for your opponent. For example, if this player placed one here and they swapped out this tile, oh look, it's a 5, so if they left it, this player would be able to see this one, which would give them a lot of points. However, they're not going to do that, so they're going to swap it out with this 1, and so now their opponent can't see that sculpture. At the end of the game, which again is determined by once everybody has placed all their meeples out on the garden, you will start scoring. First thing you'll do is you'll total up the points of the sculptures that your visitors can see. So in this case, this visitor can see this one, so that's 1, plus 2 is 3, plus 4 is 7, so they'd get 7 points for this row. Again, they can't see this one because it's blocked, so they'd get 7 points. You can do that for everybody on that scoreboard. Next, there are bonuses. If your meeple can see 2 or more of the same type, they get bonus points for each one. So since they can see 2 elephants, they get 1, 2. 2 extra bonus points. And then finally, you get points based on the tiles in your hand. So if I'm looking at this, and one of my visitors can see one of these type of tiles of a greater value that's on the board, I get the points for the tile that's in my hand. In this case, that doesn't apply. My blue visitor can see this whale, but this one's higher, so I can't get points for that. Let's take a look at the green visitor. He's got, or she, whoever's playing it, has this whale, of a 3 whale in their hand. Since they can see this whale that's higher value, they get these 3 points because it's left in their hand at the end of the game. You do all those points for everybody, and then whoever has the most points wins.
All right, so component-wise, pretty simple.
Yeah, and gameplay-wise, not a whole lot there either.
Right.
Well, on the surface.
Exactly, as far as what to do in the turn. Yes. But there's a lot under the surface there. So let's get into all of that.
Let's talk about the surface.
Let's talk about the surface. This looks so nice.
It is.
I would love to visit this Topiary garden.
Yeah.
I really like the diversity in the sculptures as far as shapes and sizes and designs. I really appreciate that they did do such a wide range so that you can easily differentiate between the different sculptures.
There are animals and there are shapes and...
I mean, there's a T-Rex and there's a whale.
Well, which one's your favorite is the most important question.
I think the elephant.
Really? Mm-hmm. Mine's the T-Rex. I just love it. He's so cute.
That is a cute T-Rex.
It's a cute T-Rex.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the artwork on this is great. It's very relaxing, calming, I think. Is a good word for it.
Right, it's mellow.
Yeah.
Like, this is a game to chill out to.
Yeah.
Like...
Definitely. Well, and then you have the diversity in the meeples, too, for each player.
Yes.
You got someone in a wheelchair, you've got girls, you've got men, or as much as you can tell. I will say that there are a couple of ours, at least one that was like kind of like weird, like it had some shards of wood sticking out. I don't know if it was the paint or the wood, but I mean overall it was well made.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So speaking of things like the
meeples.
Tiles and the meeples, well, first of all, the meeples.
Yeah.
As much as we like those, and I think they're appropriately sized for what you're doing in the games, that you have to be able to group so many around a tile.
Yeah.
The thing is, it can get difficult to, when it comes to the end game scoring, to tell which way they're facing. Right? Because you can face straight onto a tile, or you can face down a diagonal, starting in a corner.
Well, especially if you've got, like, just say 3 tiles in a row, where each of those tiles have 3 meeples on it, it can get kind of, well, are you on the diagonal, or am I in the center?
Yeah, especially if they're multiple players.
Yeah.
Like, if it's just one player, you can tell, well, they're doing this way, and this way. But with several different colors there.
Yeah.
Well, and sometimes it can even be hard to tell, like, were you looking down the diagonal over here, or were you looking down the diagonal over here?
Yeah, on the other side.
Since those tiles are right next to each other.
Yeah, so you've got to do something. We haven't really come up with any kind of system to, like, essentially, directly say, this is where I'm at, right? It's just kind of put it real close to the corner and don't bump it, or else you might actually get over to the other side. So
yeah,
it would be nice for something like this to do either some kind of a mat or a board with actual, maybe like a circle. This is where the circle is in the diagonal. So you know that when you place it, that's associated with this particular diagonal.
Very true.
Right?
I think that's a great point.
Yeah. Just so, and puts the tiles in place.
Yes. That's I think the most helpful thing would be keeping the tiles, because, I mean, since it is a 5x5 grid, I am particular about, I like it when they're in straight lines, and it's very easy with all the flipping and trading out of tiles that things can get out of the lines, and that doesn't look as nice, which is what this game is meant to be. It's supposed to be an appealing it's supposed to look nice out there. And so whenever the tiles get all crooked, that's kind of throwing that off.
So it'd be cool to have a board or a mat, but it's not a deal breaker on this one, but it would just enhance the gameplay a little bit more, I think.
Yes, I agree totally with that.
Cool.
Okay, so like we said at the top of this section, this is mechanically simple. Mm-hmm. Your turn, you place a meeple, and you may or may not pick up a tile in that row that you are presently looking down. Yeah. One that's face down. You cannot take one that's already turned face up. Once it's turned face up, it's there and it doesn't move at all. And you can, if you choose to take the tile from the board that's face down, you can either place it back where it was or exchange it with a tile in your hand.
Right. Yeah. So essentially, there's not much to it as far as what you're doing.
Yes.
When their actions, you don't have a whole slew of list of options to choose from. This is what you do, and the only thing that's optional is to swap out a tile or not.
Right. The thing is, you need to be thinking ahead. Right. With those, starting from at the very beginning with getting the tiles in your hand, and is it only in a 2-player game that you get to draft like that?
Or any of them. It's alternate. That's right. It's an alternate rule.
We did a draft. Yeah, we did the drafting one. I prefer the drafting one.
I do too. You can either hand out these tiles at random at the beginning of the game, or you can do the optional drafting variant, which I think it does make a lot of difference.
I prefer the drafting.
Because with one of the bonus point scoring is, you have if you've got a tile that on the board, you've got one that's larger in value.
If you have a tile in your hand of a certain sculpture.
Right. And then on the board, you've got one of the same sculpture of a larger value.
That your meeple is looking at.
You get the points of that tile in your hand.
Right.
So if you can stick with a 4 in your hand and then get a 5 on the board, you can end up with 4 bonus points.
Well, and what I think about is how when you're looking down a particular line, and if there are several sculptures of the same shape, style, but of multiple sizes, that you can see all of those sizes, you get bonus points for that. And so that's what I think about whenever I'm doing that, of being able to make a line of the same. So you want to try to get
the same ones in when you do the drafting. Well, and so that brings us to our next point, that there's a lot to consider when you're playing the game.
There is a lot to consider.
Right? You've got those bonus points we talked about. Like you said, the ones if you can see multiples of the same kind, you've got those, so you've got to think about that. You've got, like I said, where if you have a tile
left in your hand
of one that you can see that's large, or one on the board is larger, you get bonus points that way.
Yes.
You're trying to see if you want to block your opponent by, flipping over and switching out a tile
that's super big.
Yeah, that's beneficial to you, but not for them. So you've got quite a bit to unpack here, and you got to plan ahead too.
Yes.
As far as, since you can place them all around the board, if I mess up, if I make myself in a good place here on this side of the board, I might mess up myself or close out some options on the other side for me as well.
It certainly can. And with all of those things to consider, we've found that this can really lead to heavy AP.
It can, and if you're prone to that,
which for newer gamers that means analysis paralysis.
Yes,
where you're so locked in considering all those different things that it takes forever for your turn. And since the turns in this game are so quick and simple, it really drags this game. That can really drag a game down and make it unenjoyable.
Yeah, and if you think about it, you've got, like you said, 5x5 grid, and then you, around the outside edge, I don't even know the math on that, but each of those tiles has a possibility of 3. Multiply that. So there are tons of options of where you're placing your meeple. And then you got to consider how you can maximize all your points.
Yes.
If you want to block somebody else or not.
Right.
So yeah, if you're not initially good at making those quick decisions on the fly like that, then yeah, it can break up the flow of the game, which the game flow is pretty quick or it should be.
And that's what makes it enjoyable, is it does need to be quick. And I think that that's something that you just can't, it's a board game. B, it's a short board game.
Yeah.
So you just can't sit there and reason out all of the things, because nobody's going to enjoy it that much. Just go with your gut on this, I think.
Well, exactly. And I think when we first played it, we played it with 4.
Yes.
And one of those players, especially one of those players, did take quite a bit to decide. And after that,
there were 2 players.
Okay, well, okay. But after that first play, and that's probably what left kind of a bad taste in my mouth. After that first play, I was just kind of like, this game's kind of...
Which I understood what was going on. These were newer gamers.
Yeah.
And, you know, they don't think in those terms all the time like we do. So they weren't used to being able to do this. And so it was taking quite a bit of brain power to get into that mind space. Whereas we were able to just hammer out our turns. And so I was like, okay, this is fine. It's just that they're just new to the hobby. I do think drug it down for you.
Yeah, I do think that if after a couple plays with them, they'd get the flow of it and the system and how everything works. So it'd be easier for them to make those decisions. And coming off of, we had just played, photosynthesis.
Oh, photosynthesis, yes.
Which has a similar blocking,
Yes.
And so we already were familiar with a similar concept. So that may have been why we latched onto this one pretty quick. So just keep that in mind, that if at first you play this and it seems like it's taken a while for someone to make a decision, maybe after a couple of plays, it'll smooth things out a little bit.
Definitely.
And so it should be quick to play. 15 to 30 minutes, what the box says. That's exactly...
Our 2-player game works that way.
For sure, 15 minutes. Very quick. And you can make it as in your face as you want it to be, really.
Yeah.
If you want to focus on blocking your opponent as much as possible, then you can do that. But that's probably going to mess you up more.
It's not going to give you the maximum points that you could get.
Yeah.
But I mean, basically, all that to say, we prefer it at 2-player.
I love this as a 2-player game. I really do. I think that you can just it's got almost like that little bit of a solo feel to it. Like you can try to focus on what you're doing, but with a second player, you do have that antithesis of what you're doing, trying to not maybe intentionally or not, messing up what you're doing. So you're fighting against another person for control of the areas, and then
I will say that the main thing that I like about a higher player count is that more tiles get revealed.
That is true.
So that you have more to work with as far as deciding where to place your meeple, and then trying to wreck them.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, but yeah, for a good-looking, quick-playing abstract game with depth, we recommend Topiary.
For me, it took a couple of plays of Topiary to really get engaged and enjoy what's going on. But once I did, I find the game to be quite satisfying to play.
We enjoy how easy the game is to understand, but with that comes a lot to think about in the form of how to maximize your points while preventing your opponent from doing the same.
We do wish there was a solution to placing the visitors and being able to tell definitively where they are placed, but it is a minor thing.
And so, with all of that in mind, we give Topiary a rating of 8 and a seal of approval. We also quite enjoy this one as a couple, so it gets a couple approved seal as well.
We're going to box this one up for now. If you want to maximize the amount of Married with Board Games content you see, be sure to follow us on social media.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at DicetowerNetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.